name is Geertjan Wielenga. It's a very difficult name because it's Dutch. I want to thank you very much for coming. This is the first time that we are doing a NetBeans Day in France at all. We've had several small training courses in different companies and organizations, but this is the first of many, probably, NetBeans Days. So we really want to have this on a more regular basis. Especially want to thank Paul, Bernard, and Nebras. Nebras, it was his idea to have a NetBeans event. Paul is the organizer of this whole venue and of Davidson, and he will talk more about that at the end of the day. But this space we will use for more events like this. And in the future it will not be a NetBeans Day, but maybe a Java EE training day, or an Angular JS introduction, or some theme, some topic, or maybe Wildfly, introduction to Wildfly. And in each case we will use NetBeans as the tool, obviously, for doing those kinds of events. So today we are really focusing on the community as a whole and an introduction to NetBeans. At the beginning, in the first session, I will talk a bit about the history of NetBeans to give everyone some context. And that will be the last time anyone speaks English until right at the end. There will be many small sessions by different people talking about what they are doing with NetBeans. Nebras will talk about Java EE and Angular with NetBeans. Emmanuel is here from Red Hat and will talk about Wildfly. Guillaume Genti will talk about RobotSwim, robotics, and NetBeans. What's very important about NetBeans as well is that it is a framework for creating your own applications on top of it. So there will be a session near the end where you will see many examples of this. And right at the end, I will do an overview and a demo showing you what that means. So I know there are people here from large organizations in aerospace and so on who are investigating NetBeans as a framework. And this is definitely a focus of this event. Of course, we can't cover everything that there is about NetBeans IDE and about the NetBeans platform, but we will hopefully introduce the main points of all the features to give you an idea of what NetBeans is about. The only time that we have on the agenda is lunch, so all the other sessions will just continue until whatever, but the important thing is we will have lunch at 12:45 is our aim, and we'll have a lunch and we'll chat, and please, any break that there is, take the opportunity to network and chat, and really this is the beginning of many similar events in Paris and in France. So to begin immediately with the first session, I want to give you an overview of what NetBeans is and where it comes from, its history, what it's about, just a context about NetBeans IDE. I know quite a lot of people are here to investigate NetBeans versus Eclipse or versus IntelliJ, and you're curious about the differences. And this is really kind of a focus of this. But I'll also talk about the community, and Eric will talk a bit about the Netcat community, which is part of the NetBeans community. And just to give you a context of what NetBeans is and where it comes from and what we've been trying to do. So this is the agenda for this first session. So I'll talk about the history, about what makes NetBeans unique. I'll do a few small demos, and hopefully I will not do the same demos as other people are doing, but I'll do some very small things. I'll talk about the community and about how you can get involved in NetBeans. So, here we go. Does anyone know where NetBeans actually comes from?
Prague.
Prague, yes. So, Prague. At that time it was not the Czech Republic, it was Czechoslovakia. I don't think we need the board. So NetBeans comes from Prague, and at that time still Czechoslovakia, and it was really a student project. So there were a bunch of students at the University of Prague, the technical university, the Czech Technical University, and they had, as an end-of-year thesis, decided that they would make an IDE for this cool new language called Java. So this was like about 95, 96. So they thought, there's this cool new language called Java, and there isn't an editor, and there aren't tools for it yet, and it's very difficult to get started with this. And they were inspired by Delphi, so they called it Zelphi. It was X-E-L-P-H-I, and they decided they would make a tool for Java in Java. And so, actually, I'll talk about this later, but in this book, this new NetBeans book, there's a long story by this guy, where he talks about that they spend most of the time in the pub, and almost no time programming, which sounds a lot like what students do. But at the end, they had something that they could show at a conference. And it wasn't complete, and of course, it was kind of demoware, and they knew exactly what to show and which parts would cause errors, so they very carefully showed something of this. And Sun Microsystems was there, and James Gosling was there. And of course, James Gosling had, with a team of people, come up with Java, had invented Java. And there wasn't an IDE, there wasn't a tool for it yet. Nothing existed yet. And so they saw this group of students demonstrating this tool, and they thought, well, that's perfect. And they bought this little organization. And from the very beginning, NetBeans has been free and open source. That has been the idea of Sun Microsystems from the beginning, to make it easy for people to start to program. Because it doesn't make sense to have specifications if you don't have tools. It doesn't make sense to have, like, Java EE7, Java EE8, all these things, and lots of PDFs, lots of documents defining how to do things, if you don't have tools and templates and editors and things like that. And it was free and open source from the very beginning. And of course, in 2010, Oracle acquired Sun, and everyone was kind of concerned, what does this mean for NetBeans? Because Oracle had a JDeveloper, and it was invested in Eclipse. It provides tools for Eclipse, and now it has NetBeans as well. So everyone thought one of those three at least would be dropped, and obviously it would be NetBeans, because NetBeans was the last of those three, and so on. But in the meantime, what has happened is that NetBeans is used as the basis of JDeveloper. And the NetBeans Matisse GUI builder is used inside of JDeveloper, and the profiler from NetBeans is inside of JDeveloper. So various parts of NetBeans have been reused in JDeveloper. JDeveloper is really focused on the Oracle customers. So if an Oracle consultant goes to an Oracle customer and does a demo and shows SOA or ADF or something, then they will use JDeveloper. But NetBeans continues to really be what Oracle is officially supporting for the open source community. So when you download the JDK, you can also download NetBeans, these kinds of things. And this continues to be the case, and it's not changed. And we are still promoting NetBeans around the world. So the question is also, who uses NetBeans? And there's obviously hundreds of organizations, thousands of organizations. James Gosling is definitely the patron saint or the godfather of NetBeans. He uses NetBeans to this day. It doesn't work for Oracle anymore. He worked for Google for a while, and now he works for a company called Liquid Robotics. And he has a great time making robots that go out to sea and that get weather statistics and that check the waves and things like that. So, and he uses NetBeans, and they use NetBeans in that organization. But of course, NetBeans is used in very large organizations too, like NASA, NATO, Microchip, in aerospace organizations, and these kinds of organizations use NetBeans as a framework, but also as an editor. And I'll show some more examples of that later. And it's used in startups and in small organizations, because it's great to get started with. You just download it, install it, and it has all the tools you need. It's often used at universities and at schools. Again, because it's easy to get started with, and it's complete, and it's the official IDE, so why not? So in any kind of situation, from large enterprises to startups to schools, universities, NetBeans is a popular tool. So that's basically, very briefly, the background of NetBeans. So it comes from Prague in about 95, 96. Sun bought it, Oracle bought Sun, and so we're now part of Oracle, and we're still doing the same thing we were doing before. Very briefly about what is unique about NetBeans. Here's a roadmap. So right now we're working on NetBeans IDE 8.1. This is public roadmap, you can see it online. Right now we're NetBeans IDE 8.1 release candidate 2. with the latest version of Glassfish and Tomcat supported. Next year, or when Java 9 is released, there will be a NetBeans 9, which is actually something that Oracle started as well, because at the time that Oracle took over Sun, we were working on NetBeans 6.9.2 or something. And Oracle said, no, we're releasing Java 7. We need to have NetBeans 7. And so then our version numbers were aligned with the JDK for the first time. So Java 7, NetBeans 7, Java 8, NetBeans 8, and when Java 9 comes out, it will be NetBeans 9. So what is unique about NetBeans, if you compare NetBeans to other tools and IDEs, first of all, free and open source. We will always be free and open source. So there was some people have said to me, well, now that NetBeans is part of Oracle, it means at some point you will have to pay for NetBeans. And what's interesting is that might be the case if Oracle would be able to earn billions of dollars from selling NetBeans. And I don't think that's going to happen. So whatever Oracle might be able to earn from selling NetBeans wouldn't be interesting enough to do that. So I don't see that happening ever. It's always going to be open source, so you're always safe whatever happens. It will always be free. So that's already a unique feature versus other IDEs and tools. The other thing that is really unique is we focus very strongly on the out-of-the-box experience. We focus very strongly on, as soon as you install the IDE and you start it up, you have everything you need for all kinds of development. So Java SE, Java EE, you don't have to search for plugins for basic stuff. We have a very large plugin repository of various kinds, but for the basic features you don't need to do anything special. So Maven is built in. So often people say, yeah, Eclipse has so many plugins. And then you look at the most popular Eclipse plugins, and there are things like Maven and Git, which are built into NetBeans. So we don't have those plugins, of course, because they are part of NetBeans itself. So we are very focused on this integration, on making it simple to get started immediately. So that is the really unique feature, simple to get started with, comprehensive and integrated. And a lot of people say this is why they use NetBeans, because it provides everything immediately and comprehensively, and it doesn't feel like a bag of disconnected parts, but it's a complete environment. The other point is, as I mentioned, it's the official IDE for the Java platform. So when you download the JDK, you can also download NetBeans. And two other things that are very interesting, and you see that in a couple of other sessions when Nebras talks, and probably also when a couple of people talk. Emmanuel will also cover this to some extent. Maven and HTML5 support. So Maven works out of the box, and NetBeans understands what a POM file is. So you'll see what that means. And HTML5. So increasingly people are doing JavaScript, front-end development, and NetBeans has a complete set of tools for that as well. So we're no longer focused narrowly on Java, but increasingly also on JavaScript. The other thing is it's pretty easy to extend it, and there is a very large community around the world that are using it. So Java. So this is basically, if you haven't seen NetBeans, what NetBeans looks like for Java, and I'll do a couple of demonstrations of that. And yeah, let me do a few small demos. I'm using NetBeans IDE 8.1 RC, and in this case, I'm using NetBeans IDE 8.02. So create a simple application. There. Here it is. So there's lots of features built in. Let's make it a bit bigger. So if you're doing normal Java development, what you would do is, for example, car equals new car. And car does not exist, so I say out enter, so I create class car. So here's car. This stuff. Let's say that you have the string name, and you can copy down string city, and if you decide that you want to change these across the lines to something different, and this kind of functionality is all built in to make it easy for coding. So then You can create a constructor. You can see here string name, string city, get name, and get city. But if this were to be Boolean, you would see here is name and set name. And if I make this whatever, and look in code completion, you can see immediately it's updated to give me the getters and setters that I need. So string name. So here I'll make a constructor, and so now I can do get name and so on. But I can also, there's also a pop-up here where I can generate all the getters and setters. And now once I have this, what I can do is I can move these down. You can copy things up and down. So I'll select this. You can see this. I've copied this down, and I've moved this down. But you can see if I move this in here, there's obviously going to be a compilation error. So there's also semantic moving. So I can move up and down semantically. And now I'm pressing Alt-Shift page down, and you can see that I'm jumping over the other methods. So all of this functionality is really makes a difference when you're doing Java coding. If you're doing Java EE, so let's say you're doing Maven. So we have a Maven web application here. Next, finish. And we have here a starting point for a Maven project. And we can see here that there are no strange files. There's the POM file, and there's another XML file with some NetBeans specific configuration. But you can open any project at all that has a POM file into NetBeans. There's no import process. NetBeans recognizes anything that is a Maven project. And the same functionality is now being used also for other kinds of projects. So if your project has a Bower file or a JSON file, you're doing a JavaScript development, NetBeans will automatically recognize that, and you can open it directly into the IDE. What's also special, I suppose, is that you can have multiple projects open at the same time and work with them simultaneously. And there's a profiler built in, there's a debugger built in, and there's advanced refactoring tools. So let's say I have this example, a client editor. Okay, so let's say we want to upgrade this to Java 8. So the first thing I would do here is say, I want this to be Java 8. And then I can do, there's a lot of inspections you can do. This is kind of a hidden feature, but you can inspect throughout NetBeans. So let's say that we want to look for Lambda, places where we can convert to Lambdas. Okay, so this is one. So we inspect. And here is a place. So how would you find this normally? It would be impossible to find. So you can see that this anonymous inner class can be converted to use a Lambda expression. This anonymous inner class can be turned into a Lambda expression. So you can click on this here and say use Lambda expression. So you can see there's a Lambda here. And also, if you change your mind, you can go back to your anonymous inner class. And if you find multiple of these, you can convert multiple at the same time. Now, something else that often when you inherit some code from somebody else, you want to find, you want to find where the problems are in the code. So, so here are these inspections. So let's take a look. There is here Java code metrics. So here are Java code metrics. So you can look for anonymous inner classes with more methods than you would like to have. So often a code smell is that a class has too many methods, or it's too complex, it has too many fields, it's too coupled. So these are pretty deep analysis that can be done throughout your applications for code smells. Too deep nesting, too coupled methods. So this is static analysis that you can very easily do. So let's, for example, make it very strict. So let's say anonymous inner class, let's say method limit is 1, which any anonymous inner class would have. and then you can do a search through that and find those places. And it's all integrated, so we have everything here. Plus, what people really like is the services window. You can see here that we have Glassfish, and we have the cloud, and we have Hudson and Jenkins integrated. Task repositories, you can create Bugzilla, connect to Bugzilla, connect to Jira, connect to your databases, connect to your web services, all in one place. Your Maven repositories you can explore, and you can configure everything. Everything can be configured in different ways. So you can configure the editors, fonts and colors. You can see that it can look like this, or it can look like this. You can change. There's an extensive guide about how to do that. So I have here installed the dark look and feel plugin, and now my here this one, dark look and feel themes plugin, and so now my IDE is dark instead of glaring like this. And yeah, Git is built in, so you can connect directly to Git. So if we talk about HTML5 instead of Java, it's of course much more chaotic landscape. I think it's a very interesting landscape, the JavaScript HTML landscape, but it's very chaotic, obviously. At the moment, it's very unclear which of the frameworks you should use. As soon as you commit yourself to Angular, you find out 3 weeks later that Angular 2 will be released, and it will not be compatible with the Angular version that you are using. And as soon as you've learned about Grunt, the build tool Grunt, somebody tells you, yes, but Gulp is the one that everyone is using nowadays. And then you learn about Gulp, and then you're told, no, but now everyone's doing something else. So for a tool like NetBeans, it's very difficult, because as soon as we had created our Grunt plugin, everyone was saying, yes, but we don't do Grunt anymore. We're doing Gulp now. So then we had to create a Gulp plugin, and people saying, yes, but there's something very cool called Brunch that you need to support. So it's a very changing environment, and it's hard to keep pace with that if you're creating tools for it. But the nice thing is we have APIs, so you could create your own plugins for those things. But everything that you see here is supported in some way. So all these different frameworks, and for the first time we have Node.js support. So in 8.1, so here I create a new Node application. So hello Node, and so next, and so finish. Here's my Node project, and so now Node. So we can work with the package JSON and things like that. But we can say here Node HTTP, and now we have a web server in Node. So it's done. We've created our server. So if you run this, yeah, we need to set up Node. Okay, I don't have it set up correctly. But we now have a web server. We can debug this. We can step through this code, or we can create a front-end application with Node and say next, next, and a front-end application with Node uses Express. So again, we can, we have a complete application that works out of the box, except that we need to, set up our Node and our various NPM modules. So we need to have the sources available. I don't think I have them right here, but it's really as simple as that. So Node and Express are supported out of the box. What is also very nice is that, so I'm going to go to my GitHub repository, and I'll show you something. But in my GitHub repository, I have a project called Countries, and this is a project that uses the Knockout framework. And you can see here in this repository, there's nothing from NetBeans, right? There's no NetBeans specific stuff here. So you can see it's a public HTML folder, a test folder, there's Bower folders. So now I select this, I go inside of NetBeans, and I say clone, and I point to that folder, and I go next, next, and put it into a folder. And what happens now is that the Git clone is done, and immediately the project can be opened. And the project can be opened because NetBeans recognizes that there is a Bower JSON file in this project structure. And in the same way as NetBeans recognizes a folder with a POM file, NetBeans also recognizes a folder with a Bower JSON file. And so because of that, NetBeans knows, okay, this is something that I must do something with. And it reads the Bower JSON file and it structures the project accordingly. So here's the Bower JSON file. And so now what I can do is I can run this into the Chrome browser. Okay, it's run into the Chrome browser. And so in this particular case, it's first of all install Bower. So it means we need to get the knockout libraries. So, okay, knockout is being installed. And again, normally you would need to do this on the command line. Now we're doing this directly in NetBeans. Okay, so knockout is now installed. You can see Bower components includes knockout. So now we run it. And you can see there's this drop-down list here. And if I tab out of it, I can see the provinces of the country I have selected. So it's a very small example, but it shows you many interesting things. For example, HTML5. Did you know that you can create a code completion box like this natively in HTML5? So this input, is this visible? Or is it too dark? Can you see it? Or? Okay. So this this input field is connected to this data list, and this data list component is new in HTML5, and this input field is connected to it via this country list ID, and the data list is filled by this for each, which is a knockout command, and in that way this this code completion box is filled. So all these items come from a code completion box built natively in HTML5. So now what I want to do is, okay, I'll make this smartphone portrait so that we can see the two next to each other. And now something very magical can be done. So here is smartphone portrait. Here is NetBeans. Make this a bit smaller. And I can connect the browser to NetBeans. So now look at what happens in the bottom left window here. As I select something different in the browser, I can see where those items are found back in NetBeans, and vice versa. So I'm now with my mouse over here, and here's a live DOM view of what is visible in the browser. So now I can select different items in this live DOM view and see them directly in the browser. So normally when you inherit an application from somebody else that you're working on, it's very difficult to know where the components are that you see in the browser. Where is that image found that is in your browser, for example? So this way, okay, I can see, I select this, and here is that label, and now I can go from there into the source, and I can change things. So something else. So you can see that this updates immediately. I make any changes inside of the editor, and I save, and immediately it's updated in the browser. So another example of this, and why this is so nice, is I'll go to free CSS. If you go to free CSS templates, freecss.com, okay? If you're creating a web app of some kind, you don't want to start from scratch. So if you go to freecss.com, this is not related to NetBeans at all. It's just an online repository of templates for creating very nice looking applications. So it's just a website. So let's see, I want to download this one. I'm not sure if my bandwidth, okay, so let's download this. So here it is. Okay, so show in folder. It's still being downloaded. Okay, so here, let's see where it is on my disk. I've downloaded this the zip file. So here it is. So now I can go inside of NetBeans now, and I'll just close the other one, and I'll create a new application, new project, HTML5 application, and so my great website. Click next, and I'll go to that zip file. So on disk I have the zip file. Let's go to the location. Select the zip file. Click next. Okay, click next. We don't need these Bower package files and so on. So finish. Okay, so here is the application. Here you can see the CSS, you can see the fonts, the images, everything is there. So let's run the application, and we'll again use the Chrome browser. And let's see what the starting point was. Should probably change the entry point to this NX file. Okay, so here is our web application, right? So we have a new website based on this template. So lots of lorem ipsum, whatever. So now we want to change this this to something more meaningful for our company. So we say inspect in NetBeans. We click on here, and we can see where that is defined because we've clicked there. Okay, so here's the H2. So I go to the source, and here is that lorem ipsum. So I change this to hello Paris. I do save, and you can see here that that has changed. So NetBeans is really a perfect tool, a free tool for creating and developing websites. And if you start from this free CSS.com and you just open the zip file, it's just magical. It's really nice. Really, if I was not working for NetBeans, I would still be talking about NetBeans because this is just so cool. This is just really. And then you can integrate Bower into this. You can use CSS processors, SAS and less is integrated. If you want to make a native application from this, you can use Cordova to create a native application, and you can connect your mobile device to your laptop via a USB cable, and then you can deploy directly from NetBeans to your device. So here I can say Android device. If I was connected there, I would be able to deploy this to my device connected to my laptop, and then in the Chrome browser, I would be able to do the same thing. So you can click on the Chrome browser on your mobile device, and then see where those items are found back in NetBeans. So, yes, so we really focus on the Java story, but as you can see, we are really focused also on websites and on web applications, and on providing free tools for doing this. In addition, NetBeans is really focused on integration. So you've seen Git. I mean, Git is very easy to use. It's built in. Mercurial, Subversion, Jenkins and Hudson continuous builds. There's OpenShift. There's Oracle Cloud. There's Red Hat Cloud. There's Wildfly that you'll see more about. Glassfish, Tomcat, Payara, all kinds of servers. Maven. There's a Gradle plugin if you want to do Gradle. It's all right there. So, I've given you some demos already, so let's leave it there. Just to say one small thing, if you wanted to work with devices like Raspberry Pi, you can work in the same way. You can connect your Raspberry Pi to NetBeans and deploy directly from NetBeans onto those devices. So you can do Java SE, Java EE, Java ME, all kinds of Java development, plus now JavaScript and HTML. Now I want to very briefly talk about the community before we go to the next session. So because we are free and we are open source, and no one is paying us for this, it's very important, especially in the context of Oracle, that we have a community and that people are involved and active. And it's good for us to be able to say to Oracle, look, many people are using NetBeans. It's important that we continue to be funded, because Oracle is obviously the kind of company that when it looks at which organizations to cut, it looks at the ones that are not earning $3 billion, and we are earning $0. So we're really a community-focused organization. We want to have people involved, and we make it available for free for a community to be established around it. So for me, today is great because I've met several people here for the very first time who I've known for years via email. And I'll talk about a couple of people here in a second. But this is really what community is about, what we're seeing happening around NetBeans. And actually a very nice example, I just thought of it now, the excellent example of open source, why open source is great. TypeScript NetBeans. Okay, so everyone is interested in TypeScript. You can see here people saying, "Someone please develop a TypeScript plugin for NetBeans," right? Okay, so suddenly on Twitter about 2 weeks ago, there was a tweet from a company that I had never heard of before, and there was a link to their blog. And so if you can get to the blog, so there was a link to their blog on Twitter, and they're saying, "We are open sourcing our TypeScript plugin for NetBeans." And myself and everyone working on the NetBeans team, first of all, we didn't know that Everlaw was working with NetBeans. We didn't know that they were working with TypeScript. We didn't know that Everlaw existed. We'd never heard of them before. And you know, sometimes you know about companies who are working with NetBeans and they have some very special plugin, and we say to them, "Please, will you open source your plugin?" But this company didn't exist as far as we were concerned, and suddenly announced that they had this plugin and that they were open sourcing it. And it's a really amazing plugin. We've been trying very hard to create support for TypeScript, and it's not very easy because there's no meta description file, there's no Angular file, there's no Java CC file for TypeScript. But they have some technique that they used, and they're very smart and know everything about TypeScript. And so they've created this really wonderful plugin. So this is the nice thing about open source. Surprising things can suddenly happen like that. So I want to talk about the social media, about the books, and Eric will talk about Netcat, and about the Dream Team, about teachers, about translators and kids, and the community podcast. So to get started with that, we are very active on Facebook. And this is statistics from some time ago. It's different now, but it's better now. On Facebook, NetBeans is clearly very dominant. If you compare, which you can do, the different tools and IDEs like Sublime and JetBrains, Eclipse, if you compare them to NetBeans, NetBeans is definitely the most active in terms of engagement, in terms of likes, and we have new content there every day. We are really focused on getting a lot of content out on Facebook. We're very active on Twitter. There is a YouTube channel with hundreds of screencasts and movies about doing things with NetBeans. There is a weekly newsletter that you can subscribe to. There are many books, and I'm very happy to tell you about the latest book. So this book about NetBeans IDE was published about 3 weeks ago. And we wrote it more or less because Java 1 is coming up at the end of this month, and it's 20 years of Java. So we thought, because it's 20 years of Java, it would be nice if there was a book about how to use NetBeans. You can see it's not very thick. It's not the definitive guide. It doesn't have absolutely every single feature or whatever, but it covers the main features of Java. There's a chapter on the profiler, a chapter on versioning, a chapter on analysis and refactoring, and also a very unique feature of this book is that every chapter begins with a portrait of a famous NetBeans user. So the chapter on refactoring begins with a portrait of James Gosling and the quote by that person about the topic of that chapter. So there's if you know Adam Bean, this is the Adam Bean chapter, and he talks about Java EE, and there's a picture of Arun Gupta in here. And yeah, here's Arun Gupta picture, if you know Arun, and a quote from him about that topic. There's a chapter about Java EE, it's called Putting the Pieces Together, which goes through all the steps of creating a Java EE application and using REST services and JavaScript if you want on the front end. There's a whole chapter, a big chapter on the Java editor. So all the features of the Java editor, it goes through that, and it's got an introduction by Jaroslav Tulach, the NetBeans founder, explaining how he spent most of the time in the pub when they were working on NetBeans. And there's an introduction by Adam Bean. At the end of today, 2 of these books we will raffle as a prize draw. We'll put everyone's name into the hat. I have 2 books with me to give away. I also have to give away this book. Not physically, it will be sent to the winner of that prize. So this is a great introduction to the NetBeans platform. So if you want to do development on top of NetBeans, using JavaFX. And there's also one of these. This is a very good online book on leanpub.com. you'll find this book, and it's a very good guide to the NetBeans APIs and the NetBeans platform. So these are useful not if you're doing NetBeans IDE usage, but if you're using the framework of the NetBeans platform. But at the end of the day, we will give those away as prizes. So, Netcat. Maybe Eric, who is very active there from University of Toulouse, will talk about this aspect of NetBeans.